So what are these plants?
They were at the old studio. Not all of them, but this beauty. Pretty cool, huh?
This is amazing.
Isn't it amazing? I am so happy and grateful. So Bedrock City, Arizona, now defunct. It opened in 1974, and right near the Grand Canyon was this really cool Roadside Americana amusement park. And I tried to acquire it, but I couldn't. And it finally died, and the family gave me a call, and I got all this stuff. So these are actual buildings that they built. They're amazing structures. They're probably still there. I can't imagine they could tear them down. They were like big, thick concrete. Anyway, and then so these are speaking of those pieces that I was doing for the top of the roof at Honor Fraser. So these pieces I had made in the 1980s. So they're all from the plastic that I got off the beach in Brazil where I was living. And these are called lixo balls because lixo, L-I-X-O, in Portuguese is trash, garbage. So these are an 80s lixo work. So when I made these, people just thought they were gross and disgusting, and they kind of are. But when I show people now and I say, you know, they were like, oh, this is cool. And I say, I made these in the 80s. And they're like, what? Because when you think about it, and I'm sad to say this, I wish it wasn't true. I'm sad to say that everyone understands what's going on here, where in the 80s, they just thought I was a freak. So I'm sorry, I wish they didn't understand, and it never got like to the way it has become. I like this bench for me. This is pretty cool, right? So this was an old, I'll show you later over there, the Terrazzo. It was an old department store called Mode O'Day. It was from 1922. It was a ladies' chain up and down the West Coast. Mode O'Day.
This space is amazing.
I know, I'm crazy for coffee. That's the real stuff, baby.
So you're from California?
Oh yeah. If anyone needs to know, I was born in Hollywood, California, in the Cedars of Lebanon Hospital, which is now Scientology Center. But, you know, all through my life, I always felt it was very like movie star-like, that I was born in Hollywood. So whenever on my bio, it's like, I don't write Los Angeles, California, I write Hollywood, because it's true. I
So you're
was
meant to
born
be.
in Hollywood.
So you made it happen.
That's right. Stars.
Self-fulfilled. Self-fulfilled prophecy.
Check it out.
Talk about the New York scene back then compared to what it is now.
The difference between anywhere then and now, it's a completely different place in a million different ways. Mostly most of the people are not even alive anymore, and the ones that are alive are not there anymore. So can't really compare it.
How about today's LA art scene?
Well, I feel that it's really exciting, actually, and a lot of energy, and like I feel like a lot of youth. And I'm hoping that it can stay that way without having openings, and because that's how the young artist is going to meet other artists, and it's part of the culture. So I'm wondering how that will continue. Not a good time to want to make an opening.
What were some of your fondest memories in the New York scene?
God.
How'd you end up in New York?
I learned about Andy Warhol and the factory, and it looked so fun and cool. And I thought, okay, I know that was the 60s and this is the 70s, but I think it's gonna be pretty fun over there. So I was just on this mission, like, okay, I'm gonna go to New York, I'm gonna find Andy Warhol, and that's actually what happened. So it was pretty great. Sold my car.
Did you have a job before you, did you just go?
I just went. I went to SVA.
Okay.
My parents were freaking out because they didn't want me to be in New York because it was very dangerous there. And I applied to all the art schools here as well. They wanted me to stay in LA. I did not get accepted to Art Center. I did not get accepted to Cal Arts. I did not get accepted to Otis. None of them accepted me. And then I applied to the art schools back east, and the only school that accepted me was the School of Visual Arts. And when I arrived, I realized it's because they accepted anyone. But at the same time, the very first week of school, I met Keith Haring and Jean-Michel Basquiat. The first week at school. So there you go.
Who'd have thought?
Yeah. I have to say, I was in jail before Keith's famous handcuffing in the subway footage. Mm-hmm. I had no cameras on me. Yeah. In fact, actually, this is very timely.
So you were arrested first then? I mean, just
well,
saying your whole graffiti career.
I can't remember that Jean-Michel got arrested. I don't think he actually got arrested. So
look at that.
He got harassed, but I don't remember him getting actually arrested. I had an incident. So what's going on right now with, this is very timely. Have you heard about, because I've been hearing other people talk about this guy named Michael Stewart. Did you ever hear of him? Michael Stewart was murdered. He was a friend of ours, friend of Madonna. We spoke of her, of Basquiat, of our group in the downtown. And he was a young black kid, and he was in the East Village, was doing graffiti, and he was stopped, and he was murdered. He was murdered, and then a week after, the same thing happened to me. It was more of a long story, but they ended up being very, very abusive, running like just the craziest convoluted stuff. Like, I didn't even know they were cops. They were just chasing me in an unmarked car. I was on my bike, and then they knocked me down and ran over my bike, and then one of them, I was 20 years old. One of them was like, there was two of them, and he had my arm behind me and like trying to break my arm, and the other guy had the gun in my mouth, like shoving it down my throat, like that. And then the next thing I knew, I was in the cell, and then in the morning, this guy came, the lawyer, and said, if you plead guilty, they will let you go. I said, plead guilty to what? They said, assaulting an officer. So, okay, what am I gonna do? I plead guilty, and they let me go. And another creepy thing is when I left, and I'm really upset because they did a mug shot, and I don't have that, and I can't find it. I recently tried to find it because it would be great for like a catalog, a mug shot when I was, 20 years old, but I can't find it. There's no record of it, and whatever, it's gone. But it exists. It did exist because I remember getting my picture taken.
That's crazy.
Anyway, so I come out, they let me go, like you said, and I walk out, and there's the cop with the gun down my throat, and he's standing there with his hand on his crotch, and he goes, "Thank you." It was so creepy, and I just got out of there. And ever since then, two things. One thing, I knew never to trust the police, and I told my children that. And also I realized that if I was black, they would have killed me. And the reason why they didn't kill me and they killed Michael Stewart was because he was black, and I knew it. And that is a really serious thing. And I've been thinking about it a lot lately with what's all going on. And like I was watching on Spike Lee talking about his movie, and I didn't know until just now that he based the character on Michael Stewart. Andy Warhol also did a piece on Michael Stewart. There's a silkscreen using the headline about Michael Stewart in his painting, more than one painting. So it was like thinking about that a lot lately. And then again, thinking about Black Lives Matter. So shoot back to about 5 years ago, in New York, someone was filming me, and it was kind of boring, and I said, "Oh, let's go outside and I'll spray paint down the street," because I lived near Bushwick, and it was really easy. And so I don't get caught, honestly. That one time was different back in 81. But I know better now. And so, but because I had the guy with the camera, I figured he was watching out for me, but he wasn't watching out for me. And I went like that, and then next thing I knew, I'm in jail. And the guy is such a pussy. Okay, can you believe this? The guy has a camera, and he doesn't shoot me getting handcuffed, thrown into the fucking car. He runs away.
Best footage.
He runs away. The best footage you could never, ever ask for him and for me. So twice I've had no footage. So anyway, so I spend the night, and thank God, my daughter, I used my quarter, and she got a lawyer, and I was only there 24 hours. But I saw there that out of the thousands of men in the Brooklyn underground, they took me to two. First one near the neighborhood, and then in the central one, I was like one of 10 white guys out of thousands. Okay? I realized there's like, after I was set free, there's an underground city of black men, and I was listening to them. Some of them were like some kids that were like, "Why are you in here?" They're always talking about what they're in there for. And he's like, "Oh, this is when they had stop and frisk." The kid was driving 5 guys in a car. "Stop the car, everyone get out." "Who are you?" They look and think, "Oh, you jumped a subway 3 years ago? You've got a fucking joint roach in your pocket? Bang, you're in jail. You don't have any money. Can't call a lawyer." What do? They get out, they could be there for months before. And then what do they do there? They learn how to be a criminal. The only people they can work with is the people they met down there. It's so fucked up. It's beyond. And then I realized when I got out, I was like, there's a whole world and a city of suppression underground. It feels like they're under the ground. And it really made me think, like, wow, having freedom is like unbelievable. It's just so fucked up. And as a white person, there aren't too many that get to really know that, but I actually do. And it's really fucked up. It's really upsetting.
That's That's a lot.
It's happening right now, right?
Yeah,
Right this
yeah,
minute. It's like it's happening.
Very on point.
Have you had any experience with LAPD?
No, thank God. Other than tickets. Driving, I used to roll through stop signs a lot because I was driving a hybrid and I was obsessed with getting better gas mileage.
What is
So
with
I
you
kept
people?
rolling through and getting tickets. Now I rode my bike, so we don't have to do that.
Did you look at your numbers after every, like, from point A to point B?
Oh, I was obsessed with it. I was just watching, like, making sure I was getting better gas mileage.
You could fit off
If I
and
just
glide.
stop and start again, it's not good.
Right.
You want to just roll, and then it keeps it going.
Well, you had to
LA
be
gets like involved in,
in jail.
yeah.
But I figured at some point you had to be arrested.
Not everyone. Keith, well, Jean-Michel was not in jail. No, he was not. But he was harassed. He couldn't get taxis. You know, he had to.
Right.
You know, he was black. So. I used to have my studio in New York around the corner from Liechtenstein, and he was a super nice guy. He would go to this cafe every day at 1 o'clock, and anybody could come and talk to him. And I introduced myself, and I said, I'm just in the corner, and he invited me to come visit. So I went and I watched him paint, and I was just saying how I remember he had this amazing studio that I always wanted, I was always jealous of. So he had these giant paintings. So instead of getting up and down on the ladder or getting on the floor he had a slit in the floor, and the painting would move around,
Oh, wow.
to go underneath the floor. And so I was like, wow, that's amazing. Yeah. And that was such a shock when he got sick and died. We didn't even know he was ill or anything.
That happened with a lot.
Huh?
Did a lot of people get sick that you didn't even know were sick?
Mm.
Just-
Yeah. But it was more of a shock with him because he wasn't in the world. The world that everyone was sick and dying was, you know, I guess very gay and very, you know, trans, and like those people were just dying, like flies. But an older established artist, people weren't getting, you know, like that so much.
Did you know Chuck Close or
Chuck Close?
Schnabel?
Schnabel, I knew. I stayed at his house, and I know his family, and so yeah, I knew him more. Chuck Close, I only met a few times. So I didn't know him so well, but I knew Schnabel pretty well back in the 80s. Yeah, I mean, like, who else did I love Ed Ruscha, and I look down on him, and he's beloved beneath me. Because literally, my house, I look down at his studio.
But currently?
Yeah, for the past, how many, he's been there 15 years. So, I love to joke about it, but I literally look down on Ed Ruscha. So that's nice. I like to have Ed right there, just know he's right there. He's cool. I was talking about Robert Williams. I love Robert Williams. Such a great artist and so underappreciated in LA culture, and his contribution to art. They don't know how, he's not getting his due, in my opinion. But he will, and I hope it happens soon, because, you know, he's not a young man. Who else do I admire so much that I got to? Well, of course, Andy Warhol, he said that. I didn't get to meet Dali. I was showing briefly in a gallery with Frank Stella, so that was cool. So I like to look up to the pop artists and abstract expressionists, and, you know, the big guys that I was kind of studying in school.
What other, if you name like musicians that you're like, I can't believe.
Musicians, well, I guess a musician who is more of an artist and someone that I worship and actually was maybe even more of an inspiration than Randy Warhol was David Bowie. And so I not only got to meet, I got to befriend him, and I was just telling a story that I'll be really quick about.
I was a doorman one night when I was young. I used to work in nightclubs like all the artists did. And there was a famous club called the Mud Club. And the owner of the Mud Club asked me one night, I don't know why, to be a doorman. So I was like, okay. And then this guy comes up and I look at him and I go, who the fuck is this skinny little guy trying to be David Bowie? Trying to be David Bowie. What's he, I'm not letting him in. So I was just letting people in, and then I just made him wait. And just like, who the fuck does he think he is trying to be David Bowie? Like, I don't know. And then like, he was so polite and so nice, and he waited there for a long time. And finally it was just me and him, there was no one else. And I was like, okay, you can come in. And then literally like a wildfire, all I heard was, David Bowie's here, David Bowie's here, David Bowie's here. And I was like, oh shit, I didn't let my hero into the nightclub. And then of course, as you can imagine, I only was a doorman once, and that only one night. But that's a good story about meeting your hero. And it has to do with your hero. So my hero in my mind was 7 feet tall.
Wow.
And he was a human. He wasn't like God. Literally, he was like God. So when I saw somebody that wasn't 7 feet tall, larger than life, as a human being, I was like, I refuse to believe that could be him.
Did you ever run into him after that?
I did, actually. Speaking of Schnabel, when he played Andy Warhol in the Basquiat movie, I hung out on the set one day in Mr. Chow's, which was that scene, and David Bowie was playing Andy Warhol, and he stayed in character. And the whole day, we hung out, and we was having fun together, but he wouldn't get out of character, and he kept taking my Polaroid. He kept taking my pictures, so I don't know where those pictures are, but there's a whole bunch of David Bowie as Andy Warhol Polaroids.
That'd be fun to find.
Yeah. And then he was like super friendly, and he was like, oh, I want to be your friend. And he gave me his number, and I was like, wow, I want to hang out with him. And then I called the number, and it was like so insistent, and there was not going to relay the message to David Bowie. So that was the end of that.
Any experiences with Madonna?
Yeah, I knew Madonna we were never like real close, but one time that she was really important and she came through. I can't say all the times I felt like she's been real good or honest, but there was one time, it's usually like this every 2 minutes.
Do you just not hear it after a while when you're
Well, now
working?
it's only every half an hour, but before, I put the music loud and I don't even notice it. But, and also in there, it's different than right here. So, but one time there was a friend of ours, his name was Martin Burgoyne, and he was actually partly responsible for her, when she first started, like her look, and he was on tour with her, like her first holiday, they were very close, club kid, and he got sick with AIDS, and he was really getting sick, and she was on tour somewhere, she was already famous, and I called her and I said, Martin's really sick, and we could use your help. And literally, she came to New York like a couple days later. She bought him an apartment. She got him a doctor. And literally, she lied there in bed with him while he died. So I am always going to be thankful that she came through at that terrible time. So other things, I might not say good stuff, but those are the things you want to remember. So yeah, she was pretty cool like that. Terrible time, it was just, it's called Varsity.
Go back to good old font maker.
I just felt like doing Varsity because I'm into sport, like football. Not.
Well, you do have a varsity on today.
Oh my God, that is so funny. I didn't realize that when I put the shirt on. Oh, you know where I got the shirt?
Arizona?
Bedrock City. They were selling from the 80s.
Williams, Arizona?
No, it's not Williams.
What?
It's not far from Williams. It's like between Flagstaff and the Grand Canyon.
Okay.
And I'm sorry that you didn't get to go, but you can go to the guy's brothers who made one in South Dakota. There's a Bedrock City in South Dakota that I heard, I haven't been, is more up. It wasn't all run down like the one in Arizona was. Like it's still getting
So
more
was it
like used.
multiple, like actual homes?
Yeah, it was like
running water homes?
no, there were no running
Okay.
water, but like the Barney's bed in Barney's house, I have at my house. Like I have Barney's bed.
Is it made of stone?
No, it's wood, and it's got like leopard, like print. It's just so great.
And why did whoever
The guy,
create this was just
family, they were contractors, and they lived. He lived in Arizona, and his brother was in South Dakota. They just decided, and Hanna-Barbera back in the early '70s were like, "You want to build a Flintstone village in the middle of the desert? Sure, you can do it." And it wasn't AOL Time Warner like now. It was
Right.
just Hanna-Barbera. So they sold him the rights, and they built these bedrock cities. They were I got to make a pilgrimage to
I
South
wonder if
Dakota.
they still have the licensing for that.
Well, no. The thing is, up until they can hand it down, but they can't sell it.
Okay.
So I realized I was trying to buy it with someone else's money. That if I got it, I wouldn't have the rights to the Flintstones anymore.
Oh.
And then what's the point?
Right.
And I looked at it as more something of a term I made up called folk pop. So it's
Okay.
like folk art
Yeah.
and pop art. And I haven't heard anyone say that. So now that it's on film, I coined the term. I not only coined the term pop surrealism that has become so famous, and I have proof from the 1981, what I wrote in my what's it called? Artist writes their,
Like your CV?
no,
Mission statement.
not social statement.
Artist statement.
Well, it's like an artist statement, but there's another word for it that's better. I'll think of it in a second. But from 1981, where I talk about pop surrealism and what it is and how it's defined. And so anyway,
Do you think that
now I'm coining the term folk pop, which was like the Bedrock City is a prime example. And it's sad that it's gone because it's also Roadside Americana, which is dwindling as well. And it was part of that whole culture, which is all getting lost and
Do you know-
destroyed. Nobody cares.
do you know if there's any documentaries on it?
I don't think there's a documentary, but there is a book. I know that Todd Oldham, fashion designer, made a book on Bedrock City. I'm so happy when I can be in the ocean, and I have not swam since this whole lockdown. And was so happy yesterday going swimming, and then we got out. I talked about the dolphins and.
Crazy nature moment.
Yeah.
And of all places, Dockweiler.
Mm-hmm.
I think the most toxic beach in Los Angeles.
Well, they were diving, like splashing, hundreds of them. Oh, and then the dolphin actually jumped out of the water. You see the nose, everything in the air
With the pelicans?
with the pelicans, and it was super shallow. It was like right
In the shore.
with the waves crashing, and then all of a sudden the wave would come up,
There's good surf right now.
and I was expecting to see the dolphin like in the wave, but they just went under, so you couldn't see it.
Huh.
But it was really cool.
I know, that's a really good one. To get the birds and the dolphins and the fish, and then to have them all.
Were you in the middle of a bait ball?
Yeah, that's what it must have been.
It was super beautiful. We got all happy. I mean, when do you not get happy to see dolphins? You just get happy.
Well, no, from Robertson to Melrose,
It took 10
or
minutes.
Beverly.
It took 10 minutes
From
from my
Culver
house
City.
up to the Ivy. I zipped up, and there was no traffic at all, and everything was boarded up. It looked like Miami is getting ready for a hurricane, and then, because I used to live in Miami, so it reminded me of that. And then I parked across the street. They were sitting outside on the balcony. I wore the mask, and then I sat down without the mask, and we drank and ate, and it was like, felt really weird, like, oh my God, it was like kind of exciting. And then they got super drunk because they hadn't had any drinks. They weren't drinking alone, they were only drinking at restaurants. So they hadn't drunk, he had 2 martinis, and he was like, I'm so drunk. So it was fun. We had a great time. It was wild.
And someone else is serving.
It was wild.
That's
They were serving with they had masks on.
I drove around the other night during the lockdown or whatever, and it was really, really weird. I saw a highway patrol, LA County Sheriff, Culver City Police, Inglewood Police, Santa Monica Police, and LA Police were the only cars I saw on the road.
God, it's great.
It was really.
I don't like it. I don't like the curfew shit. That was freaky. I'm in here. You know, I ride my bike a lot, and I'm in here, and it's 5:30, and I thought the curfew was 8 because it was 8 the night before, and then I'm still painting, and I'm listening. They're like, my phone starts, and I'm like, oh, what? And they're like, okay, curfew's at 6, and I'm like, oh, so I'm gonna be riding my bike through Inglewood during curfew, and like, it just felt weird and like a little weird, like ominous. And then of course, once I'm on my bike, everything's fine. But as I pull up on Market Street, and this black dude comes in I'm on the bike on an SUV and pulls over, and I'm like, uh-oh, because of course there's riots going on. There's like a weird feeling. And he goes, excuse me, and I'm like, what? And he goes, where is there a dispensary around here? And I was like, yes, just go right there, turn to the right, it's behind in the alley, and it's right there. And he was like, thanks, I'm like, sure. And then I kept riding, and I had this feeling of like, oh, it felt so good to just have a conversation with a stranger out a window that wasn't COVID or riot related. It felt like, oh, this is so special and nice. When really any other time it would have been like, yeah, the dispensary's over there, right? Because it just happened. Weird.
So when we were driving to the Ivy, in the stores or businesses are all boarded up, is there much graffiti going on?
I didn't really see graffiti, but everything was boarded up. It was like, whoa, they are freaked out.
We got hit last night with a little graffiti in town.
Oh, really?
It was actually kind of like,
wow.
they finally made it to Corona Bar.
Oh my God.
It wasn't good graffiti. I might have posted something about someone being a toy, but it just...
I saw a really good one, because I ride my bike through Ladera Heights, and it was someone had threw away a big flat screen, because I collect flat screens and I'm making those paintings on them. And I was like, oh, I should get that one. And then I saw it and I was like, no, I'm gonna leave it alone. It was spray painted, I Can't Breathe, in pink, spray paint on the black big screen. And I don't know, I was like, that's a cool art piece. Like, that felt really like cool. I didn't take a picture because it's on my bike and I didn't have stuff. But I should have taken a picture. I did take another picture that if you want to see, because I was in my car at the stoplight, and it was a giant teddy bear, like one of those huge ones, like the size of a couch, that someone had just left on the sidewalk, and it was just like that, and it was like a bus stop. I was like, wow. There's a friend of mine, you know, Sayer Gomez. It looked like one of his paintings, so I sent it to him, and I said, you should paint this. He said, oh, I might.
I like his work.
So what were you doing in Miami during those?
I was escaping, I don't know, because like I had lived in Brazil, and I love the tropics and the ocean. And then of course I lived in New York, and my business was there and the art world was there, but it was so painful at that time with so many people that died. And all my friends either died, but if it didn't die, they moved away. So the ones that, thank God, are still here, they went to Europe, to Paris, to LA. They just scattered around. And then I was just like, I was just so sad there. I was like, I gotta get out of here. So I went on a visit once to Miami, and I thought it was kind of cool. It reminded me a little of the East Village days, which was back in the East Village days when I moved there, it was Ukrainians, it was Puerto Ricans, and it was like Bohemian artist types. And in Miami, it was old Jews instead of Ukrainians, it was Cubans instead of Puerto Ricans, and it was all these artist Bohemian types that were taking these cool spaces. And then literally within a year after moving there, they all left. They all went to different, like New Orleans, I heard. I don't know where they all went, but they all left. And then all of a sudden it became modeling agencies. And I was like, I gotta get out of here. And then I had no money. It was before internet. I had no local support. I don't know how, I know how I survived, but it wasn't an easy survival. And then it took me 7 years to get out. And then I got out and I came here.
What do you think of the whole, like, I'm trying to think how to word this. I don't know if I want to call it a trend per se, but what do you think of all the street art going mainstream?
You mean like Cause? That's mainstream.
No, well, yeah, Cause, but then some of some of the painters, other painters that aren't, I guess, how do I say it without, I don't want to say under like Shepherd's camp, but out of that kind of world.
Well, I mean,
the kids coming from the street are getting into the galleries and they're, you know.
I think that's phenomena. I mean, like back when it started, I guess it was more new, which was back in the early 80s when it was like graffiti artists were actually in the galleries and in some cool shows. And the difference between then and now was what mostly happened was the art world just kind of like chewed them up and spit them out. And not all of it is the fault of the art world. Some of it is the fault of the artist. In fact, I remember back then I was telling some of them, it's like, okay, you got in the gallery, that's great, now you should study a little art history. Just to know a little of what you're getting involved in, so the next thing you do, if it looks exactly like Sigmar Polk or somebody, you know about Sigmar Polk and you can talk about it and think of, but they were more like not interested. And so it kind of screwed them up because then they got that chance and then they weren't that savvy and a lot of them just got spit out. And this time is very different. This time they all knew before even they got into it how they were gonna, it's really, a whole different thing. Gotta hand it to them.
Do you think they take it more as a business than now than
it seems like did? A lot of it is pretty smart like that. I don't know. I mean, we'll see how things survive. Like, what's gonna happen? We don't know. Who knows?
I find it really interesting from because I'm just clearly in California, but
yeah.
What was it, 2011 Mocha show.
Oh, that show, yeah, the street art.
And then how that a lot of those artists got into collectors' homes from that generation, and how it kind of seemed like it went a little quiet and then it's come back.
Huh. I don't even know, actually. I'm the worst person, actually, to tell you about trends or market.
Did you grow up practicing?
I grew up forced into practicing.
Jewish schools at all?
Oh yeah, I had a Hebrew school, Hebrew high school. And I was like...
You were born in Hollywood, so...
I was.
How old were you when you left Hollywood?
Well, I was only born in Hollywood.
They drove
I grew up in the Valley.
They drove in from the Valley to have you in Hollywood?
I think when I was born, they might have lived in the city. And then in 1959, they built a home. And I guess that would be Van Nuys.
Okay.
And that's where I grew up. House is still there. In fact, I went to visit it because my neighbor across the street, his mom died, so they had like a sitting Shiva. So we went there, and there was my old house, and it was really weird.
Good memories there?
Well, yeah, like life, whatever. But the thing I noticed, the biggest thing was like scale. So there's like a little driveway, and then the house. As a kid, it was like a hill in my mind, like hiking up it. And then then going there was like a driveway. It's like that driveway right there, like that small. That was kind of funny.
Still have a lot of childhood friends from there?
Well, not really. It was my childhood friend's dad
Oh, okay.
that we were there. So no, I don't. There we go. Looking good, right? Whoops, sorry, did I just spray you? Because it's clear, I didn't know where it ended. I think I sprayed you. Oh, Jesus. I'm so sorry. I've never done that to anybody.
He's never gonna wash his face.
Because it was clear, I just kept going. Oh, shit.